Please read the disclaimer. Holy smokus, it ain't no jokes. The Fed decision just sent shockwaves through the market, and XRP and crypto are pulling back, but it's actually not because of what the Fed said. I'll tell you all about it. All I ask from you is that you give me a beautiful smile to send out those good vibes. Smishity smash that like button. Let's try to get 1,000 likes on this video. Listen, the past day or so, we haven't hit the 1,000 level, and XRP has been pulling back. So just saying. Let's get into it. Currently, XRP is sitting at $1.45, down -4% on the day. We were lower here. We were at 143. If you remember yesterday and the day before when we saw XRP go all the way up to 160, I told you, let's hold our horses. Let's see what happens with PPI. Let's see what happens with the Fed decision. And again, my concern was valid. You can see we didn't see XRP close over the trend line with the 4-hour. It did bounce off of the support zone here. So for now, that's good, but we'll see what potentially can happen here for XRP. Now, it's not just XRP. Also, Bitcoin has pulled back similar amount here, about 3.5%. Ethereum down 5%, Solana down 5.5% as well. So the whole crypto market is taking a beating, but not only, you can see the S&P 500 started selling off here, and towards the day when the PPI came out and then the Fed decision, so we saw the stock market selling off, and you can see the VIX is up as well, 5.8%, still over 20. So remember, anything over 20 is considered pretty bearish, and so we're still in that realm, right? You can see for the most part, it's red here today. Now, what got the market selling off this morning and basically had XRP selling off the most, right? So if we go back and we see this morning, we had a little bit of a sell-off going into the news, but then when we got the news that came out at 2:30 p.m. my time, so you can see 2:30 p.m., we saw a dip here. It even started actually selling off prior. I don't know if someone had any information, but XRP started actually pulling back. It pulled back almost 2% going into the PPI, and then it continued even falling since this morning when I recorded the video to the low, about 5.78%. So why was this so bad? It's the hottest inflation in a very long time. Core is 0.5, expected was 0.3, 3.9 for core year over year, expected was 3.7, headline month over month was 0.7, the expectation was 0.3, and the headline year over year was 3.4, and the expected was 3%. So basically hotter than expected. So Jamie said here, if PPI comes in hotter than expected for like the 20th time in a row, someone needs to adjust these expectations. And Bach said, agreed. Right? The expectations maybe are too high or too low, right? Because it's inflation numbers are lower, right, than expected. They're higher than expected. The expectations are too low. So the market looked at that and was like, oh no, right? We've seen this happen times before when actually the PPI is not great. And then we see the whole crypto market selling off on it. Whereas, so that, people were looking at the Fed decision as something that was more critical today. But I told you yesterday that the probabilities were 99% that the Fed was going to keep interest rate. And then we'd see what he was going to say about, the coming months. And actually into the decision, you can see, which was around here, the market XRP kind of pulled up a little bit, then pulled back. So if you just look at the zone since the Fed decision and speech, it's right here. Not wild action, like there was action, but not that much. The stock market kind of sold off more than the crypto market right there. So there's more concern here. You can see the S&P 500 continues to pull back here. So this will be very interesting to see going into the next coming days, what happens here with the stock market, because it is in not a great momentum here, and potentially we could see the S&P 500 pull back. We've talked about this, that that might be the last straw before crypto can go on a nice run there again. As always, I just want to remind you that this video is for educational purposes, for entertainment purposes only, not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence before you decide to invest. I do not know what's going to happen day to day. I do not know what the markets are going to do, what the numbers are going to be, what what President Trump is going to say. So it's very, very important to always do your own due diligence. And also remember that I will never contact you on social media asking you to sign up to anything or to send me anything. Those are scammers, those are imposters. Please be very, very careful out there. So let's see what the Fed had to say. So basically, the Fed halts rate cuts for the second straight meeting. So no rate cuts. That was expected, right? This is something that we knew. Fed projects one rate cut in 2026 and one in 2027. And this is you could say this is the whammy, right? If we're looking at the market, and that's what basically had the market maybe selling off a little bit. But again, most of the sell-off happened here from the PPI. So if they canceled all of the rate cuts that were expected for 2026 and 2027, and only two in the next 2 years. Not great. Remember, we talked about how potentially the last two runs when the crypto market ran, there was very low interest rates in the US. And that meant that money was quote unquote cheaper. It was easier for investors, easier for big money to take out loans, to take out investments. That is a lot less likely to happen right now when interest rates are higher. This is just the truth. So maybe we don't have that this time around, but on the flip side, we have big money that might be coming in. So again, it's the yin and the yang, the good and the bad of every single development in the crypto market. Then he said Fed PCE inflation forecast revised higher to 2.7. So at least they're revising that higher. Fed says implications of Middle East developments are uncertain. Again, this is something that whenever the Fed says we're uncertain, this could be problematic because remember, the markets don't like uncertainty. They like when they know what's going to happen, when everything is clear. And so uncertain is not a good word for the Fed to say. We'll see. We'll see how this develops in the next coming weeks. Fed Governor Miran distanced in favor of an interest rate cut. So it was the only Fed governor that voted in favor, and it was 11-1 vote. We believe, this is Kobesi saying that December was Fed Chair Powell's final rate cut. So basically that he will not cut rates again until the end of his tenure. And that could potentially, again, change if the new Fed chairman comes in and is very, very rate cut enthusiast, right? And cuts, then we could be on the other side of that equation. Remember that he is not in favor of quantitative easing that much. So on the flip side, on the one hand, he could want to reduce interest rates, but not really inject the market with liquidity. So again, it's the good and the bad. And then there was the speech. So we talked also about the speech. It says inflation in the US remains somewhat elevated. No beep, right? Prices continue to go up. Economic implication of the war uncertain. Near-term inflation expectations have risen due to rising oil prices. Yes, Captain Obvious, right? Fed's long-term inflation target remains at 2%. Last year's rate cuts bringing rates to plausible estimates of neutral. So last year's rate cuts brings rates to plausible estimates of neutral. So he's patting himself on the back a little bit, right? Higher energy prices will push overall inflation up. Again, Captain Obvious. The Fed is now what appears to be a long pause. And again, long pause doesn't mean great things for the market. But again, this Fed chairman is not going to be with us for a very long time. So things can change very, very quick. And again, this conflict might be over and oil popped again over $100 this morning and then came back down. So, things change, things are dynamic, things are up and down still in the market. And so we have to take into consideration all of these things. Okay. And so this was also what the Fed is expecting for the end of 2026. Interest rates around 325 to 350, growth GDP of 2.4 up from the previous 2.3 forecast. So GDP higher than expected by the end of the year. Unemployment rate 4.4% unchanged, and inflation at 2.7 up from previous 2.4 forecast for the PCE. So very interesting. And again, we'll see how the market reacts. Do we have anything tomorrow? Jobless claims. Maybe the market will be delicate to that. And then on Saturday, we have a Fed Chair Powell speech. I don't know what speech this is, but usually when he talks on Saturdays, it's a speech that has nothing to do with the economy, and people get a little bit freakazoid about it, but then it becomes a big nothing burger. So we'll see potentially what comes out of that as well going into the weekend. What do you think? Do you think that this is just a short-term reaction here from the Fed's decision, or will there be longer implications to what they had to say here? Are we, screwed and there's not going to be a bull run ever for the crypto market, or is this just another one of the things that in the short term gives us a little bit of a fear, but in the medium term to long term, it's just another, another notch in the wheel of things that people will use to create fear. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed, and ring the bell so you get notifications about new videos that drop, and you don't miss out the latest and greatest information. Smash the like button. It's the easiest thing you can do to support the channel. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. And like I always say, let's make a lot of money.